I am very excited about my interview today with Peter Schouten. Peter is a top lawyer known for some of the highest profile criminal cases in the Netherlands. Most of our listeners will know Peter from his role on the MARENGO process, where he took on the life-threatening mission of defending the Crown witness. But Peter is not just a criminal defense lawyer. He is also the author of Trial by Media, a diehard entrepreneur who has not one but several high-tech companies under his belt. He's also the producer of the television program and game Lingo in several countries, and the founder of a number of law firms. I know Peter from his ambassadorship on the more progressive cannabis policy, when he launched Project C, also known as Project Cannabis, in order to legalize production of cannabis in the Netherlands. Hi, Peter. Welcome.
Hello, Ina.
I must say, wow, what a rich and dense background. But if my sources are not failing me, there's one thing, you've done a lot of things in your life, but there's one thing that you haven't done, and that is magic mushrooms. Can I offer you some?
Yeah, now I will take it out so that your podcast viewers can see what it is. I myself, I don't use psychedelics or hard drugs. But I sometimes do smoke a joint, although my daughter has forbidden me to smoke it. She says that I should use a vaporizer, so she gave one for my birthday. And for me, this is a pleasure that is bigger than using, for instance, hard liquor, especially when you do it controlled, in the sense of once a month. And liquor, of course, is more dangerous for your health, and cigarette smoking is more dangerous for your health. So I believe that cannabis in itself is a very safe means of pleasure, a soft drug to use.
Well, I think you've heard of this research from RDV, where they showed that actually alcohol stands on the top list of the most dangerous, most addictive substances, whereas cannabis and psychedelics are way below that range.
Yeah, plus, which is very important, already for, I think, over 60 years, there is a misunderstanding about that cannabis would be a gateway drug for hard drugs, while it is actually alcohol that is the gateway drug, and not cannabis. There is no concrete and sufficient evidence in the science that cannabis is a gateway drug. Also, of course, the social effects of cannabis are totally different than those of alcohol. I sometimes make a joke by saying that give four aggressive guys a lot of beers in the evening, and they might go home and beat their wives. But give four aggressive guys a few joints to smoke in the evening, and they will form a band together to make music.
Hey, speaking of bands and four guys, well, actually it's three in this case, I have some inside intel which tells the story of a lawyer, a politician, general practitioner, coming together one evening, smoking one fat joint together, and in that haze of the cannabis, coming up with a brilliant idea, hey, why not join forces and together launch a project, which is your baby, Project C, Project Cannabis. How do you plead defendant? Do you plead guilty or innocent?
Now, this is a myth. So we did came together once to smoke a joint when we were giving an end interview to a documentary maker, Frans Bromet, a very good one.
Yeah, I've seen
which has been broadcasted on national TV.
Yeah,
so it is definitely no secret that I smoked a joint on national TV, and I'm totally not ashamed of that. Again, I think that the reason to do that was also because I want the stigmatization and criminalization of the soft drug cannabis to be eradicated. Yeah. But when we came to the idea, it's different, because we came to the idea because I already believe for a long time that it is very good to legalize cannabis in a country. And that in the Netherlands, where we didn't legalize it, this is a mistake. A lot of people think in the world that in the Netherlands cannabis was legalized. That's not true. It was like regulated in a system that allowed people to buy cannabis at the front door of what they called coffee shop, because you couldn't drink any alcohol there. But at the backside, to supply these coffee shops, it was illegal to buy. So it's a very weird system. And I'm very much against that system. One of the main reasons is that it creates the mix of underworld and upper world, because now people who are decent people running a coffee shop and actually do something legal are at the back door, have to meet criminals to get supplied. And that, I think, is already dangerous.
This doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and also I tell it often in this way: if at your party at home there will be somebody who owns a coffee shop and he tells stories about everything that happens there, nobody of the party will walk away. They will all stand around him and listen to him and make fun and are interested how that goes.
Yeah.
But if at your party somebody's going to talk about how he took a container of 2,500 kilos of coke into the harbor of Antwerp, everybody will disappear from your party immediately and run away.
Well, you don't know my friends then, Peter.
Okay, well, that's okay, good, because I just wanted to end the interview.
No, please don't go. Please don't go. We're far from done with you. Yeah, you know, the audience that we're addressing right now is international. So the people who are following me are from all over the world: New Zealand, Australia, US, Switzerland. And, you know, they tend to think Netherlands, Valhalla of soft drugs. Everything is available. Everything is legal. And, you know, it's just wrong to have this misinformation going around. So I'd like to correct that. So it's nice that you already introduced the topic about the illicit sources of soft drugs, because we can draw multiple parallels between cannabis and psychedelics, for example. You know that cacti, mushrooms, all of them, they're sold in smart shops, just like cannabis is sold in coffee shops. But they're all sourced from illegal sources. So it's just so difficult to put that into order in our brains. But you have been in this field for already more than 5 years, working on this project, Project Say.
Yeah.
Maybe you can help us understand, well, how does this make sense? I know you already gave an indication, no, it doesn't really make sense.
Yeah.
And that's why.
First of all, it's good to hear you have this international audience. I hope they all will understand my fat English with the Dutch accent. And secondly, I understand your question like this. First, you made a assumption, which is that in Holland all drugs are available. And I think you're right there. All drugs are available. But the assumption also basically tells that there may be in other countries all drugs are not available. And that I don't believe in. I think drugs are available in every country in the world, in every quantity, in varieties, and probably also in the amount of that is demanded, where the demand is from the people. And in countries where people are in bad social circumstances, like poor and hungry, or have no good housing and live in sheds, etc., actually the drug use is higher because people use drugs to self-medicate. But yes, in the Netherlands this is widely available. And it creates, of course, a problem for society in healthcare. Not so much cannabis. We have around 12 to 15,000 people who are, according to the institutes who follow this, addicted to cannabis. So it is also very important when you legalize cannabis that you put extra effort in addiction care. And that also makes it possible, because in my plan, I want to tax cannabis with €1 per gram in duties, so that will deliver 560 million. And my proposal is to spend that completely on addiction care for all kinds of addictions.
Beautiful.
So the other drugs, of course, the question is more difficult. You cannot just legalize hard drugs or smoking crack or even psychedelics just like that. The rooms I understand, but I'm not so much a specialist on this. But I understand legal at this moment in the Netherlands. The mushrooms itself not.
This is also very interesting, if you allow me to share a little bit.
Yeah.
In 2008, so until 2008, magic mushrooms were legal. Then they stopped being legal. So in 2008, they stopped being legal. However, magic truffles are still
I meant that. Yeah, I meant that.
This is the interesting point. The only difference between these two substances is the visual aspect. So one is black, one is white. One grows under the ground, one grows on top of the ground. If I were a magic mushroom, I would feel terribly discriminated against. So even there we have all these little discrepancies and all these things that are not completely aligned with respect to the system.
Now, there you have one of the first points, I think, when we are discussing this subject, what always annoys me a lot, and that is that it's science and investigation and research after drugs has been tempered so much with in the sense of the laws in all countries. Maybe tempered sounds too active or a little bit illegal, but I mean, there has been a lot of dampening the research after drugs. And I think that's the first thing that is wrong. It should be so that just like with big pharma, that at least the governments would allow and motivate a lot of research after drugs. What do they do? What is the effect? How does a gateway drug work? So where do we have to warn, etc. And the stigmatization has also led to make the research less available. In a lot of countries it was forbidden, like in the United States of America.
Remove the stigma on all of this.
Now, so I even become more concrete. I first say make sure that any form of research that people who are able to do research and ask a permission for it is going to be allowed under certain rules and regulations, and be very wide and warm and welcoming for research after drugs, their potential psychological effect, the addiction care that is necessary, etc. That is where it starts. And the second thing is that I feel that if you want to regulate hard drugs in the future, which is something that has my interest, but I'm not proposing this, or I'm not an advocate of it yet, because I think another thing is that we have to educate. So we also have to see that when this ever would happen, because it might be necessary to stop the increasing way of how we give criminals a method to earn money, because we basically, with illegal drugs, we give criminals a lot of possibilities to earn money. If we ever want to fight this in the right way, we should make sure that we also address it at the user side, so that we put in a lot of education for people how they have to do this, but also how the people who distribute this are going to be educated.
Cannot agree with you more. And this is exactly where, the mission of this podcast is aligning with exactly the vision that you're describing right here. It is, of course, education. And I'm sounding very socialist right now, coming from a Soviet Union country where Lenin raised us with this thing.
Are you from the time of Lenin? You look a lot younger, by the way. I'm from the time of Brezhnev, so
you look a lot younger as well. So thank you for the compliment. And I'm all about education, communicating, but doing so in a factual, non-biased way, and which is, I feel, the rest of the world right now trying to conflate a little bit about this subject. And specifically when we're trying to portray psychedelics as, I'm against mass consumerism. I'm against pharma and putting the psychedelics into a pill, or MDMA, which is highly addictive substance, into a medication which is to be given to people, and then not telling them, wait a second, but MA is...
But pharma is distributing a lot of psychedelics.
Yeah.
I say, because basically the big pharma is, of course, responsible for all kind of drugs which are legal, which is fentanyl, oxycodone, all kind of other downers and uppers, which all have in a certain way the effects that pain relieving or sleeping better, etc., that people try to find in certain other drugs, also like in cannabis, for instance, but also in other drugs. And as I well remember, basically MDMA, ecstasy, was developed to help veterans who came back from the Vietnam War because they were exactly. So in that way, it is interesting to see this big split between how we assume that big pharma can distribute all these kind of uppers and downers in millions of capsules, while there is this enormous strict policy against other drugs. That is already a strange situation.
I cannot agree with you more. And I have a very interesting piece of history that connects the Dutch royal house to the ban on psychedelics. Do you mind if I share it with you? Because our audience don't know it yet, and it might take a little time to explain it.
I like to learn.
So it's 1966. And princes, at this point, the context is as follows. So all hard drugs are prohibited. The hard drugs are cocaine, amphetamine, heroin, etc. All other forms of substances or psychedelics are legal at this point, and soft drugs as well. Now it's February 1966. Princess Beatrix is announcing that she's going to marry Prince Klaus. And there's this counterculture movement called Provo who hears about this and goes into a complete panic and starts a massive series of protests and riots against this wedding on the assumption or the allegedly connection that Prince Klaus had with the Hitler Youth. So the form that they choose, the form of protest that they choose is also interesting. They start to spread rumors that they're going to give the horses which carried the carriages of the princess LSD cubes. So what does the media do? And you're going to like this part because of the book that you wrote. The media sees all of this and says, hey, great opportunity for us to capitalize on this mass hysteria. So next morning, all tabloids are painted with headlines that are saying, LSD is making you crazy. Now, government is watching all of this in complete panic and thinking, must protect the queen. And hearing all these rumors, hearing all this hysteria, seeing all this crisis in media, what do? They decide that very evening to place a ban on LSD and along with it all other soft drugs and psychedelics.
Now, let me start first with the following. I myself are completely far away and also against complot theories for one reason only already, and that is when there would be a complot, so many people would know about it that there will always one person who is the whistleblower and will tell, well, this has happened. So in that sense, I am taking this with a little grain of salt. Secondly, I must tell you, I'm a Republican in nature, so I'm not in favor of a monarchy in a country. So therefore, I do not follow at all what is going on in the monarchistic environments, whatever it is, marriages, childbirth, etc. It does not have my interest. So I know very little about all this. And thirdly, I would say that I think that there is no way that horses could have had LSD without throwing everything into a big chaos, and that did not happen. So this story goes in the air and is a little bit of nonsense.
I wouldn't be so quick to say that, but even because they were the horses eventually didn't get the LSD because the ban wasn't.
Oh, okay. You didn't say that to me, and I never heard this whole story. But I think it is a load of crap.
Okay. Well, whether or not the story is a load of crap, that you could be very right. I don't know, and none of us will know if this is a myth or a truth. The point is that the ban on psychedelics was placed in a very quick form. So it took really a short period of time to introduce the ban, even though we had all sorts of sources, research and medical evidence which showed to the contrary. So it showed the benefits of all these psychedelics and all these soft drugs. And yet here we are, 60 years later, almost 60 years later, trying to undo that ban and trying to prove again. And I cannot count how many millions of euros have been spent on the research, trying to prove that that ban is not necessary and trying to legalize those psychedelics again. So for me, it's not so much about whether it's a nice story. It's not so much about whether it's true or not. For me, it's about how quick we are to take decisions which are not always grounded in factual truth.
And the question is?
And you know the question.
No, seriously, I don't know the question at this moment.
So let's think about your Etten-Leur case, Project C. Just a year or two ago, where you tried to open a legal factory for cannabis.
No, well, there was an experiment which has been introduced by the Dutch government to legalize cannabis production in 10 cities and around 60 coffee shops, so that they do not have to purchase the cannabis anymore from in a criminal sense, but can do it via the growers who are legalized. And you could enter to this experiment by sending in an application for the permit, which around 44 companies did, among the company that I made with a GP and a politician. And you had to write out your whole plan. And we had an excellent plan, and we also were the only one of the 44 who already bought a grower firm. It was made for blueberries, but
healthy.
Very big blueberry growing plantation, or how you say that in English. And this was already done, and then we got a negative advice from the mayor of Etten-Leur, the city where we wanted to go. And this negative advice was because we were so far in organizing everything, because we thought that if you do this in a nation where people want to have full control over the production and distribution of drugs, and if you legalize the soft drugs, then it must be 100% perfect in order. Everything must be very detailed and organized properly. And so we did. And because of that, there was also a dialogue with the people around that place, which was in a very faraway area, of course not in a housing project. And the people there showed a safety feeling. So they were, for instance, afraid that because of having a legal cannabis plant in their neighborhood, this would attract criminals because they want to rob this place, and then they would at the same time also rape their daughters. So that kind of arguments came. And
rumors?
And these
area?
These arguments were, of course, anyhow faulty if it is about a decision to let a company, because you had to go to a lottery, because everybody asked you, there were only 10 places, is faulty to use, because it is not about feelings, because the feelings are everywhere the same. And in that area, it's an orange area in the Netherlands for crime on drugs. So it means that they have already many illegal cannabis plantations in that area. So that's what would create, if there is any chance on any criminal activity, the illegal farms are creating that, not a legal farm with a very good security plan. So for that reason, there was a negative advice to the minister, and the minister then didn't allow us to be part of the lottery. So we went into appeal in the court. And you don't call it an appeal, but we basically fought the decision into the court, and it took 2 years, but we won that case. And now we are appealing in the High Court for these kind of cases, called the Council of the State, with the king at the head. And we are appealing this decision now, because the judges in the lower court said that there would be no consequence. They ruled for us, but they said there's no consequence, so we cannot go back into the experiment.
And didn't help you.
No, it was a typical virus victory, also it meant that we still didn't got the damages of 3 years of work and all costs that we made. And that was not an entrepreneurial risk, because the entrepreneurial risk is there when you are not managing to be the winner in the lottery, but not when you have been excluded for wrong reasons.
So if I understand it correctly, in my own grandma words, I'm going to summarize it a little bit. Project Say, trying to produce legal cannabis and regulate the production of cannabis, requested a permit from the government to stabilize it.
12,000 kilos a year. Yeah.
To produce 12,000.
Many varieties.
Many varieties of legal.
Also, and also for hashish.
Yeah,
because that was.
You were forbidden or not granted that permit.
Forbidden is the wrong word. So we were denied to partake in the lottery of companies.
Based on gut feelings and actually mass hysteria, people who didn't have the factual information, protesting against your establishment.
Yeah, and the mayor of that town then basically put her ears to that and came with the wrong advice. Although it was a female mayor, she herself admitted that we had a very good plan.
Which was a fantastic case. And I have a deep compassion for you because I know personally one of.
Well, you don't have to worry about Nina.
That is the feelings, Phil. No worries.
Compassion is not the right word here. You win a few and you lose a few.
Yeah.
And that is, as a lawyer, you are used to that. But of course, everything should be in the rule of law. So when that has been violated, then you can go to court. And luckily, that's in the Netherlands all properly organized.
Yeah, and now you were proven right. But what can you do with all of that? Yeah, of course you're going back to court, and of course you're going to continue.
Well, we got a €1,000 damage payment because the court dealt with our case too late. So it took them 2 years to deal with the case, which is of course
cynical, but I know
very
how much
strange
work that is, right?
Yeah. Well, the €1,000 was the cost of the printing paper that we used during the project.
Which is not unimportant because those are also good to have covered. Well, I know the partner with whom you work closely. He's participated not in one but several psilocybin assisted sessions with us. You are a CEO. And a question to you as a CEO: if I invited you and one of your teams for a team building event or psilocybin assisted methods, what would be your answer?
That I'm too busy for that, and that I'm having a lot of law cases.
But if you had the time,
normally I available for things like that, because again, it starts all with the right information, the right research, the right education of people, and the right plans to when you want to go towards a situation where drugs are legalized or regulated. The idea of just bulking around that drugs should be legalized is idiot. You have to progress with a very fundamental plan. That is why we worked 3 years on the plan of the Project C, as it is called. And we even had the environmental interest there to say, okay, 30% of our profit should be spent on improving addiction care, the area, projects in the area for giving youth and adolescents back the public space,
society,
because the public space has been taken from young people. Young people are nowadays supposed to sit in a very little flat, go study in again a very little flat for which they have to pay €800 a month. And the public space has been actually taken away from them, and extracurricular events in the Netherlands are very little. So I think that should have been improved also with the money that would have been provided by legalizing soft drugs.
Giving back to the society.
Yes.
Beautiful mission. Not just in content, also in form. Beautiful. Peter, one last question. And, this podcast is all about the I or the self. I call it the most self-centered, cynically, sarcastically, I call it the most self-centered hour of the week. And I would be remiss to have you on this interview and not ask you about who Peter is, who is the I behind Peter. And if I may start with a quote from Playboy that I recently read, but also in other newspapers, I would like to go back to 2021, which you call Annus Horribilis. And you're quoted saying things like, you cried, you screamed, and you shouted that you felt terrible. It was a difficult year. And I leave it up to you whether or not you want to open or to speak about some of the events and the tragic events that took place that year, which caused you to feel so sad. However, my question is, well, first of all, incredible that so many things can happen in 1 year, because it wasn't one friend, it was two friends that you lost. And secondly, where are you on your integration process? Where are you on your processing of your grief now, 2 years later?
Yeah, this all has been passed now. I've said a lot already because the people keep on interested in my well-being, I noticed. But now it goes quite well. And I have said in an interview some weeks already ago that I accepted the situation as it is now. And I know, for instance, that my friend Pieter R. de Vries, that I always carry him with him. And as long as you carry somebody with you, he's there. So it goes well with me. Thank you very much, interest, Ina. The only thing you do have to do later on is take the illegal mushroom, or maybe it's just one of Albert Heijn, from my table away, because this is a law firm and there should not be any illegal substances on the table.
Definitely take it with me. Peter R. de Vries was not just a friend for you. He was also a coach, but he was also a muse. So I can imagine that a lot of inspiration and a lot of love remains in your heart for him. And also, am I revealing a secret if I say that there is a podcast coming, Crime de la Crime?
Oh, no, because it already started on the 1st of August. It is Crime de la Crime, actually, because it is a playful on Crème de la Crème. But the colleague lawyer with whom I do this, he says he's from The Hague, and in The Hague they have a specific accent, and in his accent is crème de la crème. So, that podcast is ongoing now. It's already online, and you can find it on Spotify. So.
I will add the link so people can find you. Of course, they can already find you, but it's much easier this way. Thank you, Peter.
It's in Dutch, by the way, so not for your international...
it's not just, my audience is not just international. I think 60% are Dutch. So there's quite a few people who would be interested. And actually, I noticed that interviews in Dutch are doing much better than the international interviews, but that's a different subject. Thank you very much for your wisdom, for your words, for your time and participation. We have a tradition, and you may find it a little bit annoying, and that is to leave the podcast with a question for the next participant. Even though you don't know him or her, you don't know who will be interviewed, any question. It can be as crazy as you want. We're doing a bit of a lingo game here.
Now, I would like to ask the next participant of your podcast if he or she believes that punishment in jail for longer than 2 years will still have any effect of the improvement of the person detained itself. So that question should be answered then.
Wow, that's going to be a mind boggler. Thank you, Peter. And it was a pleasure getting to know you better.
Thank you.
Have a good day.